Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Yorks. I'm the owner of the Flower Box, and today I'm going to be doing a live demo of a really cute pot of gold with a rainbow. And this is a little bit of cookie construction because there's a gift card peeking out inside of there. I'm going to show you step by step how to make this fun little project. I'm so excited to be partnering with Craftsy today to bring this fun cookie construction project to you. Let's take a closer look at what we're making. I have this little cookie example here, and you can even pack this cookie up to make it like a little gift. Now, you don't have to put a gift card in there. I actually have mine wrapped. You could even put little pieces of gold coins in there, a note, whatever you want to stuff in that little pocket. And the one thing that makes this cookie construction really cool is that it's actually made with 3 different cookies. So I'm going to show you how to create these cookies and how to assemble this. If you have questions during this live, definitely post them in the comments. I would love to answer your questions about cookie decorating, anything to do with baking or prepping the cookies. Feel free to ask away and I'll answer those as we go. So also hi there, Mia. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already done so, you can download a step-by-step guide, and this guide is going to include information on how to mix your icing colors, how to bake the cookies. There is a materials list in there as well, and a note page. So definitely get that guide. You can use the link to check that out. And I hope that is helpful for you as you are decorating this project. So like I said, this cookie project is actually 3 different cookies, and I'm going to show you the cookie that is in the background first. This is the large pot of gold with rainbow, and this cookie is the base cookie. It is just peeking out of the back. This is really cool because it just looks 3D. And this cookie, the purpose of this cookie is to have a nice flat surface with all those rainbow colors peeking out from behind it. So this cookie we're going to be outlining and flooding, but we don't need any details because it's really just the base cookie. And when I was kind of designing this project and thinking it through, I almost didn't even think I needed to add this gold section or the pot since you don't see it. But if you're sliding in that gift card, it is really nice to have a nice flat surface. So first, let me show you how to set up that background cookie. One of the tricky things for me, at least, is knowing where those scalloped lines go. And if you're using the cookie cutter set from this project, this is that big cookie cutter. This is the front of the gold section. And this is actually the little gift card holder. That's where the gift card will slide in. So if you're using this, you can trace the cookie cutter onto this cookie to get that gold set up. If you are cutting these out by hand, you could even, just trace by hand a little guide for that gold. You don't necessarily need to trace anything, although it is helpful. And for me, I also found it to be really helpful just to have those sections of the rainbow. So I'm just going to split that rainbow in half, and then I'm going to add a section for the red, the orange, and the yellow. And then we have green, blue, and purple on the other side of that center. Those lines don't have to be perfect. It's just meant to be a guide. All right, so now that we have that set off, I'm going to go ahead and start getting these sections outlined. Hey, Tabitha, so glad you can join us today. I hope you're having a good start to your day. All right, let me grab my black icing. And I have a tip number 2 on my icing bag. And the first thing I'm going to do is outline the pot. Now on this design, and if you download your little guide here, you can see that that pot comes up kind of high. And actually this first little scallop on the cookie is the lip of that pot of gold. So I'm going to start my black line just going around that curve and just bring that around. That's just kind of following that cookie. And then I'll finish off that little section. Then we're ready to outline the rest of this entire black pot. Again, this section isn't going to have any details. This is just our background. Now I am using royal icing for the icing. If you're new to royal icing, you can find a recipe in that prep guide that you can download. And the one thing that makes royal icing really neat and really the perfect icing for a project like this is once it dries, it's almost like a candy surface, which means you can pipe details and stack things just knowing that it's dry. So again, I have a tip number 2 on my piping bag, and I'm just going to outline those gold pieces. And then we are going to just use a single 20-second icing to outline and flood these sections. So no piped lines needed up there yet. All right, so let's start flooding in. So I used a thicker piping icing for my outlines. Now I have a thinner flood icing. This is about a 10-second flood icing to flood in this gold section. The nice thing about flood icing is when you flow it onto the surface of the cookie, it is self-leveling. And so you can see as you go across, it really just levels itself out. You want to make sure you get up against that outline, and then you have that nice flat surface. If you don't see your icing self-level, you need to make it just a little bit thinner, and that will give you that nice flow that you're looking for. Now here's where we stop and just let that dry, because if I flood the black icing right away, it could bleed into that gold. So we are going to stop right there. I have a cookie that is already dry and ready to go. And on this cookie, if you want to add this cute little shamrock detail on the front, I'm going to show you at the end how to make this little candy piece. You make this ahead of time and it just will get set on that icing. This is also royal icing. So nothing extra needed for that. It's called a royal icing transfer because you make it ahead. It's like a little candy piece. And then you pop that onto the wet icing. So again, I'm going to flood in this nice big pot, and notice how generous I am with that icing. Lots of flow so that no cookie is showing, and that will give me a nice flat surface at the end. If you leave some cookies showing, sometimes you'll see some little dips in the surface of the icing. All right, now that we have our pot flooded in, we're going to flood in alternating areas of the rainbow. And like I said, for the rainbow, I just have these single bags of icing. I have all of my icing just bagged up in a little icing storage here. And these single bags are great. It's actually a 20-second icing, and they're fun for doing these smaller icing areas where you just want to outline and flood all with the same bag. So I'm going to bring that red up and around to create that rainbow. And you don't have to worry too much about this being perfect because again, it is in the background. And once that neighboring icing section is flooded in, it will all sort of even itself out. Now the decorating on this particular project is a little bit more straightforward. There's not a lot of extra details or techniques outside of piping and flooding. However, there are a lot of icing colors. So prepping the icing for this project, you need a little bit of extra time to mix all of the rainbow colors. And one way to save on dishes is to use one mixing bowl. And as you're mixing the rainbow, you can start with the lightest color, the yellow, and you add a little icing to that mixing bowl, make your yellow, bag it up. Then in that same bowl, add some white icing, make your orange, and bag it up. And you just work through your rainbow, going from the lightest color to the darkest color. And even though there's going to be a little bit of residual icing in that bowl, it's a great way to just have one dish at the end. So oftentimes mixing those colors light to dark in one bowl with one spatula can be a nice time saver when you have all these icing colors to mix. Joy, welcome to the live demo. So mixing on this particular project, we have 8 colors, and I would say plan for about 45 minutes to mix all of the colors. And often when I'm making a color like black, I will like to mix that the day before, because with time, those deeper, darker icing colors will get even darker, and you don't have to add quite as much food coloring to that. So usually about 45 minutes, although if you're a new cookie decorator, definitely, plan for a little extra time. Okay, so I have my dry cookie here. The icing had a chance to set up. And I love how the royal icing behaves. And once you have your icing areas dry, you can get some really nice definition lines between those icing areas. So what I mean by that is you can kind of see those individual sections of the rainbow just by flooding alternating areas. If you don't allow those alternating areas to dry, it will just create one flat surface, which also wouldn't be bad and maybe take a little less time as well. But I like seeing all that definition between those icing areas. So we're almost done with the rainbow. We just need our green and our purple. Now, if, Joy, you're new to cookie decorating and you want to keep your color plan a little bit more on the simple side, you could make that rainbow section just 3 colors instead of 6. And that would simplify your cookie design, and it would also reduce the amount of time you're going to spend with making icing. Now, these icing bags are lots of fun. They're a great option for decorating with royal icing because they're disposable. So once you use up all the icing, you can just pitch it and no cleanup necessary. When I trim these bags, I just keep that seam side up. I flatten down the tip, give a little snip, and we are ready to roll. Usually that opening is about the tip size of a tip number 2 or 3. I don't like to cut it too big because you start to lose control over the flow of icing. So I like to have some control over the flow of icing. And that's why I keep those little snips kind of small. So flooding icing is just a common icing consistency with royal icing. And that is what keeps that nice flat surface on the cookie. And I like it because there isn't a lot of extra work required with it. It self-levels itself. Now, if you are brand new to icing consistencies, I do have a class on craftsy.com. It's called Celebrate with Cookies, and we do take an in-depth look at 4 common icing consistencies. The 2 most common being the piping and the flooding that I'm using today, but I do talk about stiff icing and 20-second icing, and it is a great review. But icing consistency can really help your cookie decorating be a little bit more successful. Now, Katie asked, is there a reason why I'm outlining and then flooding right away? And really, you can do it both ways. You can go through, let's say you're making a dozen cookies, you can outline all the cookies and then go back and flood all the cookies. Or if you are just doing one feature cookie, like a project like this, where maybe you're not making a lot of cookies, you can certainly outline and then go ahead and start flooding in. I find I get great results doing it both ways. So I hope that answers your question, Katie. These are great questions. So if you have more questions about cookie decorating or icing consistencies, definitely pop them in the comments. I would love to help you be successful with your cookie decorating. All right, so we have our pot with the gold and the rainbow, and this is ready to go. This is going to be the background cookie on our cookie construction. So I have a dry version of that cookie. I'm just gonna set that to the side, and now we're going to set up our pot of gold. And this one is what we're going to see on the top. Okay, so this is our finished cookie. And to get that little shamrock, let me just show you how easy it is to make one of these. With your prep guide, you can download the Royal Icing transfer sheet, and there's just a bunch of shamrocks underneath. And it is as easy as using your piping icing and just outlining that shamrock and flooding in that section, and then allow those to dry. I always make these the day before. Allow those to dry for 8 to 12 hours to create that little candy piece, and it just pops right off your parchment paper, just like a piece of candy. So those are lots of fun to make. If you're looking to use these even on multiple cookie projects, you can save any extras. They do break sometimes, so I always suggest making extras. All right, so let's get started with our pot of gold. So Laura has a great question. She asked, do you have a formula for how to make new colors, excuse me, other than primary colors? And there are lots of color mixing resources out there, Laura. One of them is cookie color charts. We actually carry those in our shop on flowerbox.com. And those color charts are made by Georgianne Bell. She also has a Craftsy class as well. That's lots of fun. So I recommend that you check that out. But her color charts are really cool if you're looking to explore unique and new color palettes. She also has suggested palettes with those color charts, and they're pretty awesome across the board. Originally, they were designed to be used with the AmeriColor gels, but I use Chef Master gels, and I find that color mixing with her charts works really well. Now, with that said, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of gels available out there. Chef Master has 36. The Sugar Art has 24 different gel colors. The Cookie Countess has 24 plus different gel colors. And oftentimes I find that it's quicker and more consistent to mix your colors straight out of the gel bottle. For me, it saves time. If you ever want to recreate that color, it's pretty predictable out of that gel bottle. And one gel bottle going from light to dark can create so many different shades. So if you enjoy the color mixing process, definitely check out those color cards. If not, just know that there are resources out there for you that you can use to make that process simple. Okay, so we have our pot outlined, and I've used that tip number 2 as I've gone through and outlined the pot and the different gold pieces. And I'm going to flood in that pot again, nice and generously. That'll give me that nice flat surface on the cookie surface. I just like how smooth and beautiful that will look. Now, black icing is sort of a requirement maybe for a pot of gold, but you should know that black icing, navy icing, it can turn the tongue black as well when you eat it. So if you're making cookies for a large group, you might want to consider toning it down and using a charcoal or a gray icing instead of the full-blown black. That will reduce, those funny looking smiles. Although if you're a leprechaun, maybe you want to play a little trick on people for messing with your gold, and the black tongue is what you're going for. All right, so I have my little shamrock here, and I'm just going to drop this candy piece onto the surface while that icing is still wet. Since it's sticky, it will just kind of glue on there. If you need to nudge it, maybe you didn't quite get it centered, you can nudge that into place and get just the right placement. Now, again, with these gold pieces, I'm going to want some of that dimensional look. See how it looks like each piece is unique? We're going to get that by flooding in alternating gold pieces, letting those dry. Since those are small areas, they just need a little quick dry. And then we can get that really nice dimension. So Jessica has a question about drying your icing. And usually I suggest drying your icing, and I dry my cookies in front of a fan. In between these different icing areas, I will dry icing for 45 minutes to an hour. These little small gold pieces really just need like a quick 15-minute dry time just to get that icing to set up. And then I will actually store my cookies overnight in the cool oven and pack them the day after I decorate. That way I know that my icing is dry all the way. I do have this one packaged up, and you don't want to pack up the cookie and then have the icing still be soft. So usually I recommend decorate on day 1 and then pack your cookies on day 2. Martha, thank you so much. Martha says she uses the Flower Box color cards. We do have a set of color cards that show all of the different color resources. And it shows each of those gels in, this is going back to color mixing, it shows each of those gels in the different shades that you can make. All right, so let's flood in these little coins, and we will finish off this section of the gold on the pot. Notice how I don't need my scribe tool very much. This is a little pointy tool. They come in all different shapes and sizes. But when you're using these little piping bags, you can really just push the icing into place, and you can reduce the amount of time that you're picking up and putting down your tools. So now we have all of our gold pieces flooded in, and we're just about done with this cookie. I'm just going to flood in the lip on the pot. Get that nice and full looking. Let that dry as well, and then we're ready to add some details to the cookie. Now I did add details to the lip on the pot. I just want to bring this to the foreground, and adding that piped line really does the job, and it just brings that to the front and then sets off those gold pieces in the background. And while I'm still holding this black icing bag, I'm going to switch to tip number 3. I'm taking off my number 2 and putting on my 3. This is just a larger tip, and I'm going to add those nice big handles on the pot. Hand pressure is real key with cookie decorating, and so I'm going to use a lighter squeeze as I start the handle, and then right around here I want to start squeezing harder to make the icing thicker, and then ease off just to get that nice little thin area. Again, start off with a nice light squeeze, and as you're going down around the curve, thicken it up, and then ease off as you come back up to the top of the handle. That just adds a little bit of interest to that handle instead of just piping a straight line. So I love to use a stronger or softer hand squeeze to create those thicker and thinner areas. Now, Laura asked, why didn't I just flood all of the coins at the same time? And you could certainly do that, Laura, if you wanted to, especially if you were maybe putting gold sanding sugar on there. But when you flood each of those coins individually and allow them to dry, you get those nice little definition, those little icing areas. Now, on my finished example, I did choose to outline those. I thought that kind of set them off even more, and I'll show that now. But if you wanted to save time, that would look really cool just as it is. So it really is, how much time do you have to decorate cookies? Sometimes you have to simplify things just to get the job done. Helen says she would also put details on the shamrock, that would look nice. Absolutely. You could even do an accent color on the shamrock. It is really fun to use your creativity as you're decorating your cookies. So I encourage you to do that. I also thought maybe if you're making these for friends or family, instead of a shamrock, you could even pipe a name and personalize these cookies, and that could be a lot of fun as well. Now I did size down my tip, so we sized up to a tip number 3 on the black to add those handles, and I sized down to a tip 1.5, and it's just slightly smaller than the 2. And I like that size because it keeps these little details a little bit smaller, thinner, and a little more subtle so that it doesn't overwhelm that. And you can add as many or as few details as you want to. But let's get to the cookie construction, because this is really part of the fun of it. I have 3 cookies that are already prepped and ready to go. But if we just put that cookie on top, there would be no room for the gift card. And so we do have this plain cookie that is in the middle that we're going to glue in. Royal icing is definitely like glue because of how it dries. And that will give us the space for that gift card to slide in there. When I was baking these cookies, I used what's called the Dough Easy rolling system. It's a mat that allows you to roll out your cookies without adding extra flour. And I love it because you can really add a lot of flour as you go. I like the flourless method. And it comes with these pastry sticks. It has this 1/4 inch stick that I use on my regular cookies. I always roll my cookies a 1/4 inch thick, but it also comes with this 1/8 inch stick that can be used for pie crusts and pizza crusts. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool to have that thin little credit card insert section just be a thinner cookie? You really don't need a super thick cookie because a gift card is super thin. So I did actually use that thinner pastry stick. Now, if you don't have pastry sticks, you could always use like a paint stir. Put your dough between 2 paint stirrers and roll your rolling pin on that to get a nice even flat. So there are ways to do that, do it yourself, but the Dough Easy is a nice little system as well if you want to make the investment. Yolanda, my cookies don't rise actually because I do not use any baking powder in my cookie recipe. I really want my cookies to hold their shape, so I have omitted that ingredient, and you can get the recipe in that guide as well. And it is available there to you. But I also, one little trick is before I bake, while my oven is preheating, I will chill my cookies in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes while the oven is preheating. And I find that that really reduces the cookies from spreading or puffing up or expanding during the baking. All right. So now I have squeezed out some black piping icing. This is royal icing. It's almost like glue. Think gingerbread houses. You know, when you put gingerbread houses together, they really kind of stick together. It is important to allow this cookie to dry completely. I would allow at least 8 hours for the cookie to dry before you start construction, just so that you don't put any dents in your cookie. So glue that first section down, and now I'm going to add just a little bit more glue or icing. And then I'm ready to place that second cookie. Ooh, gotta get a good grip on it. On the top. And there we have our little cookie sandwich ready for whatever you want to stick in there. See that little insert section? So you can stick in your little gift card. Now, I did choose to pack my gift card in a cookie bag just to keep it from touching the cookie. And you can just slide that right in there, which is lots of fun. So Christopher asked a great question. Do you need to fill the black and the coins in for the bottom cookie? Christopher, maybe not. If you're really trying to save time, you don't necessarily need to flood in that bottom section. But I found in order for your gift card to stay nice and flat on the surface, I did flood that. Plus, if I peek down inside, I can see in there just a little bit, and I like that that decoration is available. But having those sections flooded down below, even though you really can't see them, keeps it nice and flat for that gift card or whatever treat you're sliding into your pot of gold, nice and flat. All right, you guys, that is our cookie demo for today. Let me just show you a little packaging suggestion here. I showed this in the beginning, but if you're looking to pack your cookies, you can use a treat bag. I packed mine in a 4x8 cookie bag. It has a little gusset just to allow for this thicker cookie project. And you can even box your cookies. There's tons of box options out there. One website that I personally enjoy is BRP, but you can find cookie boxes in most cookie shops. But this is such a fun cookie project. If you make these adorable cookies, I do hope you tag the Flower Box and also Craftsy. We would love to see what you make. If watching this demo has gotten you excited to decorate cookies, let me just point you right back to the craftsy.com website. Not only do I have 3 cookie decorating classes that talk about everything from decorating for the holidays, how to navigate the cookie decorating process. That's probably my favorite class, Smart Cookies. There are also at least a dozen other cookie classes taught by great cookie artists, and you can learn how to make your own beautiful cookie projects at home. That is our cookie demo for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing what you create. Definitely tag us. Until next time, happy decorating. Bye, guys.